Please be seated. We're just going to take a moment before we begin to make sure that there are enough chairs for everyone. If you are sitting next to an empty chair and you can just raise your hand, that would be helpful. Can people hear me clearly in the back? Louder. Can you hear me in the back?
Shamayim baretz Ezri Meim Adonai Oseh Shamayim va'aretz. I lift my eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, maker of the heavens and the earth. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He gives me repose in green meadows. He leads me beside the still waters. He revives my spirit. He guides me on the right path, for that is his nature. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod, they comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Ach tov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveit Adonai v'shavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim.
I was just about to close a drawer. I said to Joan, we don't often have funerals at Shomrei, so there might be a few bumps this morning. And she said, I don't mind a few bumps because this is at home. This is being at home for me. This is like being in my own kitchen. Today we mourn the loss of Richard Weller, beloved husband to Joan for 48 years, beloved father to Elena and to Daniel and to Rachel, beloved father-in-law to Matt and to Marissa, and he hoped one day to Yochai. Beloved grandfather to Luke and Jordana, beloved brother to Jay, brother-in-law to Fran, and uncle to Dana and Farron. I left someone out? And Randy. Richard is being buried today in the middle of the festival of Sukkot
and on the same day that the final remaining hostages were returned to Israel alive. It's a time of sadness and loss personally, but a time of rejoicing as a people. Though we would have liked more time with Richard, the family told me when we met that was a blessing that Richard died peacefully in his sleep. And when we gathered to share memories, there were tears, but there was also so much laughter. Richard Weller was born in the Bronx and grew up in Queens. He loved being an older brother to Jay. No. Oh, no. He was the younger brother. He dreamed of being the older brother. But in fact, he loved being the younger brother to Jay. And reciting together Lewis Carroll's poem, The Jabberwocky, with its made-up words and nonsensical creatures like the jub-jub bird and the Frumious Bandersnatch, I don't know if I got that right. This poem, carried into adulthood, captured Richard's playful side. He loved Lewis Carroll, Shel Silverstein, and the Sideways stories. It was Richard's father who would inspire his love of books and classical music. Richard didn't just read. He read the classic and history tomes about the founding fathers and Churchill. Though Richard's father never went to college, he inspired an intellectual curiosity and love of culture in his son. Richard was so smart and gifted that he skipped both 7th and 8th grade and began his freshman year at Dartmouth College at age 16, where he studied history before obtaining his law degree at the University of Pennsylvania. During my last in-person visit with Richard at Mountainside Hospital, he was so positive and energetic. You never would have known that he was someone who suffered with chronic illness, disability, diabetes, heart disease, and kidney disease for so many years. He didn't complain that day. He was just eager to tell me 2 of his favorite stories. Sitting up on the side of the bed in his hospital gown, he told me in great detail about his first day of basic training in the National Guard, which for those of you who don't already know, was also the very same day as the moon landing. But the story he told with particular joy was the story of how he met Joan. It was 1975, and Joan was ready to settle down and get married. So she conspired with her girlfriend to plan a find-a-man pool party at her parents' house. Joan's friend had a lawyer friend working in a law firm in New York, so her task was to get the guys to come. Joan's job was to get the girls to come. Joan told me she liked Richard from the first minute she answered the door. She remembers the way he said with dudley-do-right joy, "Hi, I'm Richard Weller." He had a sparkle in his eyes. Joan says Richard was more interested in her cousin at first, but that didn't stop her. Joan sat right down next to both of them, and when Richard kept talking about how much he loved children, especially his nieces, Joan took note. Later on, when everyone was in the pool playing Grease the Watermelon, Joan, never one to be shy, jumped right onto Richard's back. They both told me that. They exchanged phone numbers and started talking on the phone and eventually dancing on Tuesday nights in the city. And eventually, Joan dragged Richard kicking and screaming into marriage. Richard was a bit hesitant to commit. So rather than getting engaged, he bought Joan a fox fur coat. When he said to her, "Isn't this nice?" she said, "It's okay, but my parents expect me to be engaged at Christmas. Where's my ring?" Richard said, "How about we get engaged at Easter?" And Joan, at age 29, with the clear goal of getting married and having children, told Richard, "You have 1 month. Listen to me, Richard. If you haven't proposed to me by your birthday on January 22nd, do not call me. Do not come to my doorstep. I will never want to see you again." So at 5 minutes to midnight, on Richard's birthday, he got down on his knees and asked Joan to marry him. And sitting there in his hospital gown, 48 years later, laughing at his stupidity in keeping her waiting, Richard told me that marrying Joan was the best decision he ever made in his life. And he told Joan the same thing all the time, especially in recent years. Just last week, he was sure to tell Joan again just how much he valued her. Richard came into the marriage with a very high IQ, but his EQ was a work in progress. And Joan, in her signature style, made it clear that Richard needed to seek counseling to learn how to process his feelings better, to work out issues from his childhood, and to learn how to be more sensitive. I found it very moving to hear Richard's family talk with honesty and love about how Richard worked on himself over the course of many years to become a better husband and father. And they deeply appreciated the transformation he underwent to become more vulnerable, empathetic, emotionally attuned, and open-hearted. Richard was someone who had humility about his shortcomings, and he could joke about them, and so could his family, apparently. And over time, through his hard work and through his love of family, he became more whole. Richard was always kind and loving. He had a heart of gold. He had an enthusiasm for life and a very fertile intellect. He had a witty sense of humor, and he was very fond of dad jokes. Every time, if you asked him, did he get a haircut, he would say, "No, I got them all cut." He just couldn't help himself. He was a lifelong teacher and loved to teach the SATs and LSAT, and he was a lifelong learner and also loved to read books and to discuss current events and ideas with his friends, the Romeos. But what he loved most of all was his family and friends. As a father, Richard would do whatever he needed to do to provide for his family. He was a devoted fan of each of his children, cheering them on in sports, attending every game. He helped Elena for hours with her math homework, editing her school papers, even typing them up on the typewriter. Rachel remembers how he once helped her with a teaching job in Israel. When she told him she was teaching Hebrew through jokes, he prepared 45 pages of dad jokes for her. 45 pages. Richard loved to play with his kids and with his grandkids, getting down on the floor, even when he could no longer get up that easily, to play Legos and stuffed animals, board games, card games, and imaginative games. As Joan says, that's why I picked him. Richard had a game he played with his grandson Luke, where he would narrate an imaginary horse race, with Luke on one horse and 2 other imaginary horses with silly names running around the house until Luke's horse finally won the race. Some of Richard's happiest moments were sitting at a holiday dinner celebrating with family, as he did this past Rosh Hashanah one last time. He also loved to hang out with the family at their rented beach house, late into the night playing parcheesi in a super competitive way. Richard would often say, "My children are my greatest accomplishment." And Joan, Richard quickly realized it didn't matter how many books you read in a month, because you could read him like an open book. You brought love and joy and fun and healing to his life. He didn't need to bring that 10-foot telescope on the trip to Maine because the star of his life was already sitting right next to him. And you cared for him with such devotion, both in sickness and in health. You were his Eshet Chayil, his woman of valor. And to the Shomrei community and to the Romeos, you gave Richard the gift of community and belonging. Whether during his heyday as the men's club co-chair with Marty, or sitting at Kiddush talking to friends, or gathering with his buddies in Watchung Plaza, Richard loved to talk, debate, and discuss. He deeply appreciated having such good friends in his life. Richard, you will be remembered as someone who would do anything for your family. A wonderful man who loved deeply and was deeply loved. You will be missed for your vocabulary, for your word games, for your humor, for your delight in learning. You will be missed for your silly poems, for the way you played with your grandchildren, and for the way you always made the fun times more fun. You will be missed for your moral compass and your integrity, for your soft heart, your compassion, and your depth of feeling. Richard, you were a true Chafetz Chaim, a person who loved engaging with life and fought so hard to live as long as you could. You will be dearly missed. Zichrono livracha. May the memory of Richard Weller be for a blessing. I now want to invite each of Richard's children in turn to come and share a few words, beginning with Elena. So people can see you, it's helpful.
Sitting down to write this was a daunting task, to say the least. The idea of capturing the essence of someone whose impact on my life was so enormous felt overwhelming, even ridiculous. How do you capture the essence of someone who has played a critical role in making you everything you are? I know that's not really possible, at least not for me at this moment. So instead, I've got a few memories and images that will hopefully offer a couple of small glimpses into the man whose influence has shaped my life so profoundly. I picture us, me as a little girl, curled up on my bed as he read bedtime stories, of which he was the undisputed king. He did all the voices, all of them. He was a one-man cast, adjusting pitch and tone like a seasoned actor. No character was too minor to receive a distinct accent or dramatic flair. I would often fall asleep with my head on his shoulder mid-story while he was still deep into character voices, completely unaware that his audience of one had nodded off. Since he had to have an audience, though, he'd often try to shake me awake so we could finish just one more chapter. So naturally, the next night usually began with a recap, or in some cases, a full reread. He passed that love of reading on to all of us. He talked about his favorite classics, Gulliver's Travels, Robinson Crusoe, Treasure Island, Moby Dick, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, anything by Charles Dickens, with the kind of enthusiasm most people reserve for dessert. Reading was his escape as a kid, and it remained a refuge throughout his life. More than that, it was the primary way that he explored the world, considered issues, and honed his passionately felt core beliefs. He didn't just collect books. He reveled in the accumulation of beat-up paperbacks and thick, leather-bound tomes alike. They overflowed from every surface in his office, even after years of my mom gently and not so gently urging him to purge this effing mess, Richard. You couldn't walk past a shelf without risking a literary avalanche. My father also had an insatiable curiosity. He loved learning, not just for the sake of knowing things, but for the sheer wonder of it. He went to talks and lectures about everything from black holes to classic cinema to the history of classical music. He often bought an extra ticket so one of us could come with him, just to share in whatever new fascination he'd found that week. My dad didn't just love stories, he loved play. He'd sit on the floor for hours with us building Legos, doing puzzles, playing endless games of Go Fish, Monopoly, Parcheesi. When his health began to fail and his body no longer cooperated the way it once had, he never let that stop him. He'd still get down on the floor to play with his grandchildren, Luke and Jordy, whom he adored. Getting up from the floor became increasingly problematic, but the idea of not doing it never crossed his mind. As recently as a few years ago, I remember watching him climb gingerly into the bouncy castle Daniel and Marissa had rented for Luke's birthday. Luke jumped and he sat, allowing himself to be jostled around in a way that could not exactly be described as graceful. A quick peek at his face made it clear that he was loving every second. Being with his kids and his grandkids, that was his happy place. My dad was a fighter. The last few years of his life were marked by countless hospital stays, and yet he faced every setback with calm determination and optimism. Beyond that, his characteristic wit and humor remained ever present. He never complained. He approached each challenge with a quiet grit, ready to get back at it, no matter how hard the climb. My dad embraced life and engaged with the world with everything he had, whether it was in reading stories, playing games, singing, chasing his next intellectual obsession. He wanted to soak it all up, spending time with the people he loved, sharing ideas, stories, and learning about the world. In addition to the wonders of modern medicine, I am certain that my father's devotion to his family and determination to make the most out of every minute played no small part in enabling him to live as long as he did. Daddy, your passing has left a giant hole in my heart. You were and will continue to be an inspiration to me and a model for how I want to live my life. You have shown me what it means to love unconditionally and fully, what it means to persevere through the most challenging of times, and what it means to take care of the people you love and be there for them when it matters most. In the wise words of one of Dad's most revered philosophers, the great Dr. Seuss, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. Dad, you are a success in every way that counts. I promise to do my best to honor your legacy by embracing life the way you taught us.
Thank you, Rachel. Elena, I'm having one of those days. Yes, I'm just having one of those days. Thank you, Elena, for those beautiful words. And now it's Daniel's turn.
Hello, everybody. First of all, let me say I do not relish giving my speech squarely between Elena, who is the best writer and the English teacher of our family, and Rachel, who is clearly the most book smart of we three siblings. As the proverbial meat of the sandwich in this situation, I will caution you all that I am a science nerd who loves movie and TV quotes. So buckle up, people, because I don't know how all those ingredients are going to shake out into a speech of this kind. Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further than others, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." And while I know he was technically talking about scientific insight, this phrase leapt immediately to mind when I sat down to write this, because at the staggeringly average height of 5'10" on the best of days, our dad was nevertheless a giant of a man. Not physically, of course, but if you knew my dad, you know that physical prowess was never his forte. But his intellect, his passionate belief in reason and logic, his steadfast belief in the capacity of humanity, his capacity for compassion, his love and enthusiasm for playtime and story time, his childlike glee when sharing old movies, jokes, or shows, his inexhaustible store of dad humor, his pride, interest in, and love for his grandchildren, and his love for and devotion to his family. In these respects, he was a giant. He gave me so much wisdom, some of it serious and some of it silly, both equally valuable. So much so that I get to relish and pass along some nugget or another almost every day of my life. Here are some of my favorite things that I know because my father taught them to me. Some of them are from wise sages of the past, and some are all him. Quote, "When you get to the fork in the road, take it." Yogi Berra. It's not hoarding if it's books. The more things you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. Dr. Seuss. When confronting people he thought were fools or shallow, my dad told us all to remember that, quote, "Sometimes still waters run deep, and other times still waters run stagnant." I know that who is on first, what is on second, and I don't know is on third. As long as the world is turning and spinning, we're going to be dizzy and we're going to make mistakes. Mel Brooks. I know that there are 3 clear ways to enjoy grits. There's regular, creamy, and al dente. My cousin Vinny. I know that whenever someone in my life claims to have, quote, "gotten a haircut," that in fact they actually got them all cut. You know, whenever my students give me the opportunity, I still use that one to my everlasting and simultaneous joy and shame. Every time. So those are just a few of the items that he loved and shared as often as possible, but there are so many more, and for the foreseeable future, I will likely wake up daily and regret omitting one more saying that just sprang back to mind. This last one, however, is one that he never told me directly, but he and I shared a mutual love and admiration for Neil deGrasse Tyson. So this one is from him, and whether my dad knew it or not, he damn sure lived it, and he modeled it for me. "It is the knowledge that I'm going to die that creates the focus that I bring to being alive. The urgency of accomplishment, the need to express love now and not later. If we live forever, why ever even get out of bed in the morning? Because you always have tomorrow. That is not the kind of life I want to lead." So, let's bring this thing full circle now and come back to our old friend Isaac Newton, who stood on the shoulders of giants and saw further, or so he claimed. And as I already stated, Dad was also a giant in his way. And today I find myself peering into the future, a future that I can barely see or understand because he is not there. And as his child, I stand on his shoulders and I think, I'm supposed to be able to see farther. Instead, I'm not sure if I will ever see as much as he did. Turns out that schmuck Newton had a lot to learn. Who knew? One final quote from Dr. Seuss, whose writing largely captured my dad's whimsical humor and amusing way of looking at the serious issues of life. "I'm glad we had the times together just to laugh and sing a song. Seems like we just got started, and then before you know it, the times we had together were gone. Goodbye, Dad."
Daniel, thank you for those words. Rachel.
I'm waiting for my emotional support human. Just hold on. My second emotional support human. Can you hear me? Okay.
Looking up at the night sky offers a glimpse into an impossibly vast universe, one you know you'll never fully comprehend. Writing these words feels like that, knowing I can never truly capture the universe that was my dad. But even though words are profoundly inadequate, I know he would want me to try. After all, he was, among many things, a wordsmith. When I think about being my father's daughter, who he was, his essence in my life, and what I will always carry with me, several things come to mind. He taught me to love learning, the thrill of discovery, the beauty of language, and the tenderness of music, in expressing emotion. He researched and bought me my first telescope, then patiently and diligently taught me how to use it. When I moved to Israel, he spent months figuring out how to ship it to me. It ended up costing more than the telescope itself. But for him, time and cost were never the point. The gift was the stars. The gift was always a sense of wonder and sharing it with me. He fought his tardiness. Every day of primary school, he dropped me off, and every day we were late. It mattered to him to be there. I knew that even then. He taught me to pursue excellence and speak with intention. He was a stickler for grammar and never hesitated to correct an infraction, his way of reminding me that words matter. He taught me the importance of tradition, the reading of prayers, the gathering of family, the reverence for rituals that have bound us across generations. That reverence lives in me now. He taught me that it's not just okay to live, it's essential. Despite his immensely complex sickness and the things we can't control, he urged me to live fully with both his actions and his words. When I was supposed to move to Israel, he had just suffered 2 heart attacks in prior months. When I wavered, he insisted that I go. He and my mom wanted me to follow that instinct to learn who I was. He was proud of me for taking that leap, even when it meant distance. And when October 7th happened, the choice became stark. I could stay there, or I could come home. I needed to be near family, near him, in case the skies were to close again. That decision brought me back to him for these last years. It led me to the love of my life, Yochai. It led me to building my life anew, shaped by what I learned from that journey. It was the most beautiful arc, and one that would not have existed without his support. I've been anticipating this loss my whole life, since I was far too young. This profound, gut-wrenching absence. He'd been sick since I was 8, and I hated seeing him in hospitals. But what always comforted me was his humor and resilience, no matter the diagnosis, no matter the hospital stay. And still, I was terrified. Now that he's gone, my mind is split. I feel a pain deeper than I could have imagined, and also a quiet relief that he's no longer fighting. I know how hard he tried to stay, how fiercely he fought for every memory, every milestone. His mind was strong, maybe stronger than his body ever was, and I believe that strength kept him alive for decades beyond what time had planned. That, too, was one of his greatest gifts to me. Endurance, love, and a will to keep showing up despite all odds. And now, at this difficult moment, I will close with a passage from one of our favorite Dr. Seuss books. There's a theme here. You'll get mixed up, of course, as you already know. You'll get mixed up with many strange birds as you go. So be sure when you step with care and great tact, and remember that life's a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix up your right foot with your left. Daddy, I know you are at peace. You deserved everything you ever wanted and so much more. From here, I'll honor you by trying to capture as much of life as you wanted, for yourself and for all of us.
Elena, Daniel, and Rachel, listening to you speak with such love about your father and all that he taught you and all that he inspired you to be, I can see why he said you were the greatest accomplishment of his life. We've come now to the El Malei Rachamim prayer, the prayer for eternal rest. Please rise as you are able. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Amtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'malot Kedoshim Adorim Kezor HaRakia Mazirim En Nishmat Raphael ben Mordechai Shelach Leolamo Vegan Eden Tehei Menuchato Anna Balarachamim Astireu Beseter Knafecha Leolamim Utzor B'tzor HaChaim En Ishmato Adonai Unachalato V'yanuach B'shalom Al Mishkavo V'nomar Amen. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure who shine with the splendor of the firmament. To the soul of our dear Richard Weller, Raphael ben Mordechai, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, remember all his worthy deeds in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May his memory always inspire us to attain dignity and holiness in life and to live life to the fullest. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. This concludes our funeral service. I want to make one announcement, and I'm going to invite Bill Rose to continue with some additional announcements. Because we are in the middle of the holiday of Sukkot, it is customary to postpone Shiva until the holiday ends. So the family will begin sitting Shiva on Wednesday night after Simchas Torah at the home of Daniel and Marissa in West Caldwell, beginning at 7 p.m. on Wednesday night, with Minyan at 7 p.m. Also, they'll sit Shiva on Thursday and Friday. If you want the details of the hours, you can speak to me. And it is also a custom to have a meal of consolation after the sacred act of burial. The family will be hosting this meal at Daniel and Marissa's house at 3 p.m.
Burial will take place at the Cedar Park Cemetery, 735 Forest Avenue in Paramus. There are directions located in the pedestal next to the door, the main doorway, on your way out if you need them. We're also going to be forming a funeral cortege, so anyone that is coming, please put your emergency flashers on, and we'll get everyone in line as we're going to be going on the Garden State Parkway. Once we arrive at the cemetery, we ask everyone to remain in their vehicles as we check in. The foreman will then lead us to the gravesite where Rabbi Julie will conclude the service. And when we depart the chapel, we ask everyone just to remain where they are as the casket is led out by the pallbearers and with immediate family following. Thank you.
One more announcement that everyone is requested to please exit through the main front doors through this door since preschool is